Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for being with us here today. And thank you to your officials. It's a pleasure to see them. Some of them I've had the privilege of working with in a previous life. My question today is, when Bill C-5 was tabled, there was a June 6 news release from your government, and it stated that projects that were designed for conditional approval will be done so following full consultation with affected Indigenous peoples and in accordance with Canada's commitments to UNDRIP and Canada's constitutional obligations to consult Indigenous groups. Happy to see that. But what concrete measures is the government taking to ensure that this bill will continue with free, prior, and informed consent with Indigenous peoples on whose land these national projects will be built on?
Thank you very much, Senator, for the question. Thanks also for acknowledging our great officials. The Indigenous element is really important, and I'm going to give you a few specifics, and then I would like to talk higher level about the approach I think we need to take. There will be the creation of an Indigenous Advisory Committee for the Major Projects Office. There is capacity building for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis of $18.6 million per year from 25-26 to 28-29. You know how important that funding is to provide, you know very well, to make it possible to have real collaborative work. And I want to emphasize something that I am personally really proud of, which is the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. I put in place $5 billion. The Prime Minister one-upped me and raised that to $10 billion. I strongly support that. And I really believe that if we do this right, and I think all of us need to be committed to that, we can see this legislation as being about Indigenous prosperity, Indigenous participation in Canada's economic growth, Indigenous participation in building Canada, as you said really rightly, Senator, on Indigenous lands.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to hear that. And, you know, there are a number of initiatives that have been doing great work in our communities. I guess my concern is that this bill will expedite timelines on major projects and will certainly affect Indigenous peoples. How will the government specifically ensure that sufficient time is allocated for the consent and consultation of Indigenous peoples in any meaningful way?
Well, I think I tried to offer some answers to that. I think the Indigenous Advisory Committee will play an important role. I do really believe that the capacity building funding is important so that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis can participate themselves in the work. And I believe that this legislation is not about skipping steps, but it is about saying instead of taking steps sequentially, let's take them simultaneously. It is saying let us all roll up our sleeves, do the work we need to do, not take shortcuts, but do that work and do it faster. Because we are in a crisis, and that means we have to work faster. And I would say the substitution agreement that we already have with British Columbia is a very promising and exciting example of the way to do this. We have an intention of having substitution agreements with everyone done within 6 months. That is about, in a practical way, acting on let's do things simultaneously and not sequentially, and let's not do things twice.